Morgan,
Chatone.
are we in the same room?
I know, right? Best ever.
So you guys see she's better.
Yes.
She's better. Listen, my name is Chatone Morrison. This is Getting Our Podcast, and this is
Morgan Bustos.
the other half.
Right.
All right, listen, I told you guys we were going to be coming back and giving you some great little bit of series about appreciating little things this week.
Mm-hmm.
And Morgan is feeling better. So if nothing else, know that if you need extra time for yourself, like we were talking about yesterday,
Right.
take it.
Yes.
Right?
Like, she was so gentle with me. She let me sleep for like a lot. Like the whole day. I think, what time is it?
I'm a little salty.
She is.
Okay, but I'm good. But I love her. So, it's needed. And, in midlife, I think a lot of times, like I've been talking to a lot of women lately who are just like, it's either the Perry's getting to them or their teenage kids and angsty husbands are getting to them. And they don't know when it's okay to take that time and when not to feel guilty.
That's the key right there, is like not feeling guilty about it. Because I'm not going to lie, like I felt guilty today being upstairs and sleeping until what, 6:30, 7-ish.
Yeah, I was just, I'll be honest with you guys. So, I live in Maryland. She lives in Winston, Salem, North Carolina. And so we don't see each other often. So the saltiness was really worse for me because, and we're going to talk about this a little bit next week and also a little bit later in the week, that the work that we're doing, we don't just teach this work to other people. We actually do this work, and we did some really deep work.
It was really crazy.
Yeah, really deep work. I want to make sure y'all see the shirts, so I just had to pick some lint off of her. I want to make sure you noticed.
Did you see this? All this awesomeness right here.
But what's funny is that, and so rest is needed. And so for many people, they've taken time with family and, it was really good, but then they come back from that and it's like, I need time off or I need moments. And so yesterday, which you haven't even seen this yet, but the drop from yesterday is all about, how do you find those moments and how do you take them? And how do you honor yourself with them? So it was inspired by you because you were clearly taking 30 hours to rest and rejuvenate. Okay. And I forgave her.
She did.
I love her. All right. But we don't have that time. So as opposed to 30 hours, what I talked about was 30 seconds per minute per hour, 30 seconds per hour. If you can't find 30 seconds per hour, there's something wrong. And I'm just it's a bold statement, but I don't think it's that bold. If you can't find 30 seconds per hour, there's something wrong in your life. Something needs to be tweaked. 30 seconds should be able to be found. And the goal in those 30 seconds is to be still so that you're able to allow the cortisol level to just come down a teeny bit. Just to allow it to come down a little bit. We're talking about this idea yesterday. So we're talking about, you worry about your weight. Everyone in December is worried about their weight. They're like, oh my God, I ate this. Oh my God, I ate that. And now there's cotton candy. What is it? Not cotton candy. Candy canes?
Yes.
I hate candy canes. I'm sorry. Kill me. I hate candy canes. I don't like them at all. Do you like them?
I like the blueberry one.
Okay. I don't even understand what that means. What is that?
It's a blueberry candy cane.
Ew. I don't know.
Yum.
A blue and white candy cane?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. She's from out west. They didn't have the color red.
We were out.
So I don't know what that even is. But people are worried about that. But the thing is that really weighs you down is not the belly fat. It's not how big your hips are or the width of your arms or legs. Or, in my case, I'm wearing a t-shirt that's a little bit too small for me. I feel uncomfortable in this t-shirt. Gotta get a different size, right? But here's the thing. It's not about the size or the weight of your body. It is about the size and the weight of your spirit is what is weighing you down. And how can you release that? And on an everyday basis, we tap every single day, more than once a day. All right. Do we spend hours doing it? No. Sometimes a couple days
when it's
ago,
needed, like it's
needed.
important
Sometimes we
to
do.
have it.
Sometimes we do.
Yeah.
But giving yourself that time, for me, I always tap in the evening. I always tap first thing in the morning, and I tap throughout the day as I'm going through things. But it doesn't always mean that it's this huge amount of time, but also taking those moments to breathe. So we're going to be talking a little about that later on as well this week. So we're going to jump back in. I know, Morgan, you love this book. I know this is one of your books.
One of my favorite books. I remember I did this one recording and I was like, oh my goodness, could you imagine what my life would have been like if I would have stuck to that every week. You know what I mean? Throughout the last couple of years or last year or whatever, I would have been so much further ahead in my progress of my journey through everything.
Oh, I think you're pretty hard. I think you're doing great.
Well, thank you.
I think you're doing great. If any of you haven't seen our podcast series that we did in October, which was called Overcoming Silence, Resilience and Rediscovery After Domestic Violence. She is a domestic violence survivor. And so book or no book, the strength that this woman has is pretty incredible. And so, yes, work helps, especially as a single mom, a widow, young widow. It matters. But at the same time, we keep moving. We can say, oh, what I could have done, that raises cortisol. Oh, I would have did. No, we move. We start right here and then right here and then right here. Like we got to just keep restarting exactly where you are. Well, this week, what we're talking about, this is key one. Again, if you don't have this book, you can get this, Fat and Happy, little glare there. You can get this book on Amazon. You can get it from us. It gives you basically 25 weeks of coaching with me, right? So I released this book in 2020, and we do use this along with tapping because there's journaling in there. Yes. There's ways to affirm yourself. There's ways to get to what you need to tap on, all right? Because a lot of times, right, women come to us and they're like, I don't know.
Well, and this sets you up perfectly because all the questions in here, they're leading questions. So it puts you in the right frame of mind to be able to know what you need to work on. So that's really great.
So I liked the idea. We do get deep in here. There's a lot of things about with women and body image and things like that, because big, small, indifferent, whatever, women have issues with their bodies. They could be the tiniest, the biggest, whatever. There's some issues and it's societal. But before that, we have to make a baseline of joy, because this is all about finding the baseline of joy. It's really important. So our first week, the first key is on appreciating little things. And so yesterday we were talking about how do you get that space? Like where do you go and create that space? And making sure that you find it, create it, push people out the way to get it, kick them down and lock them in a closet. No, I'm kidding. Make your space. Like get your space. Sleep for 30 hours. Do what you got to do. Create the space so that you can create a place to create peace. And so the second one really gets a little introspective, and I want us to talk about this one. If you were able to listen to us yesterday, or if today's your first day listen to us, no problem. You can listen to this podcast without listening to yesterday's, but I would suggest going back and getting yesterday's because it was really good. But today we're going to talk about this topic because this is the second question in the week. So this is day 2. This is our second question. This gives you a place where you'd be able to journal on, I can't even show you, where you'd be able to journal on question number 2. And question 2 is, what is one thing that has worked out for you despite hardships and challenges you experience? And you may think, what does that have to do with appreciating little things? It does.
It really does.
It does.
So are you asking me? Do I get to?
You get to go first.
Okay. So I think honestly, like being in a situation where we had to walk away from so much, so many different times, there was a lot of resentment and anger and sadness from that. So being in a position where now we are in like a super, super safe place. Yeah. We're surrounded by people that we absolutely love, like the nest that we've been put in right here, in North Carolina. Our congregation is amazing. Our friends are amazing. The house, like that's huge for me. Like being in a position where we didn't even have a place to live a lot of times throughout that whole thing, or a house that wasn't safe or up to code or things like that. Yeah. And being able to have a home now where, the kids each have their own rooms. They have their own beds. They have their own space, that I could be like, go to your room, which is really great. But it was the fact that it was everything that we needed. But then a step further, it was like what I wanted too, like specific little things, that I had asked for. And all 4 of them, they happened. So
do you ever find that like you work with a lot of people, you've worked with lots and lots of women that have those things but miss them?
What do you mean by that?
Miss them. Like the question is really about what's worked out despite the hardships. So you're able to see them because a whole goal is talking about appreciating little things. And I think that what I found, I'm just asking if you found where people that you've worked with or even encountered miss.
Like don't know how to appreciate the good things that are in front of them?
I don't know if they know how to appreciate it. I don't think they see it.
Like, not being able to acknowledge the good things. That happens a lot. because we get so caught up in our own little worlds, and it's easy to not be able to appreciate, oh, I woke up today. Oh,
Yeah.
I have running water to take a shower. I have hot running water to take a shower. I have gas in my car, little things like
Yeah.
that. So it's a matter, I think,
Yeah.
of really taking a second to acknowledge the littler things, because then it puts your mind in the right spot to see the bigger things on a regular.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that, I mean, for me, I wasn't a part of domestic violence except for, you and a couple of other people that on the periphery.
Mhm.
But I think we all have hardships, challenges, difficulties. Some people understand what we're going through. Some people don't. Some people are compassionate and some people aren't. No matter what, I think when you're inside of your little trauma situation, you're going to be alone. There's going to be you could be with all these people, but you're still encountering your experience by yourself.
Yeah.
And so with that, it's hard to see outside of that and say, oh, well, here's a good thing.
Because you're consumed.
Yeah,
you're consumed by it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like for me, I would say for me, the biggest thing has been pain. And I mean, it's just been pain and ick and health issues that honestly, because I constantly look like it's just the way that I'm built. It's the way that I'm programmed. I'm programmed to find, it's weird. Like I'm really programmed to find good stuff. And then when I've been in negativity for too long because it's hard, then I'm pretty much knives out, and whoever's near me is going to get it. And so that also allows me to release it. Like it's just like,
she ain't lying.
You gonna get it. Like someone's gonna get it, right? But I think it is a matter of saying, like, okay, those little things. These are the things that we actually write down in this book. Whether it's water, a lot of times for me, it really is the physical. I think a lot of times people think about the material things, especially Gen Z, Gen Alpha, this newest generation. They think about stuff. They think about things to be appreciative for. And I'm just like sitting in my car, and the way the leaves fell across, the way the sun fell across the leaves on my face. And I took a selfie yesterday or the day before yesterday. And I just sat for a moment and appreciated that piece. I went and sat at the park the other day, and I was listening to the Bible being read to me on an app. And it was cold, and it was like kind of a finicky day. It was kind of sunny and not sunny and sunny, not sunny. And then all of a sudden, as I'm, listening to God's word, the sun just came across my face, just so warm. And I felt safe, in the park by myself, but there was no one around. And it was one of those moments I'm like, oh, let me write this down tonight. We will forget to do that. So maybe, my health's not greatest. Maybe I'm struggling with my weight in weird ways, even though I don't eat anything, right? Things that really irritate me. But it's like, I've got so much goodness that if I just focus on the goodness and then just work on the other things, doesn't mean you're ignoring them. There's difficulties and hardships, but there's also a lot of beauty. It's a lot of beauty. So we're going to ask you to do that. We're going to ask you today, think about it. What's something that's worked out for you despite like a hard challenge, something that's worked out in terms of, and I'll give you a good example that's so minor and so silly. A couple of years ago, and I had my terrible car accident in January 2022, but I still had to travel to see my mom. I mean, my mom is, at that time, she was 85. I had to go to see my mama and help with her doctor stuff and things like that. But I was in tremendous pain. Like every single day I was in so much pain. I'm thinking, how can I bring all of the accoutrement that I need to bring with me to my sisters? Like, how can I do that? I got the heating pad, I got the massage gun, I've got the TENS unit, I've got the special pillow with the dent in it and all this. And specifically, I had to keep my feet elevated at night while I wore these ankle ice packs. I mean, I look like an Eskimo going to bed. I got ice packs and heat packs and electronic stuff, and I look crazy, right? Well, the wedge pillow, how am I going to get a wedge pillow on a plane? So I was already telling my sister, like, I don't know how sleeping's going to go for me. I was really nervous about it. I need my rest. So she's like, okay, I'm going to take these blankets and I'm going to build them up for you. And that made me like, I didn't think it was really going to work, but I was like, okay. Call my sister Fachi. I was like, okay, Fachi. She said she's going to build them up. What do you think happened? She was talking to a mutual friend who lives, she worships with. And she was like, oh my goodness, I know your sister had an accident and everything. And she was just telling her, I'm going to build her up. I'm going to do this. She goes, I have a wedge. I used to use because my ankle, I had plantar fasciitis. I needed to get the ice on my leg and this and that. Do you think the wedge would help if I bring over my wedge pillow?
Wow.
I kid you not.
That's crazy.
See, that's a little thing, because in reality, I could have just bought a wedge pillow and sent it to my sister's house. But then when my sister's going to do a big old wedge pillow in her guest room, right? But instead, someone loaned us one. It's little. Is it aggravating that I need to sleep with my legs 4 feet in the air? Yes. Is it aggravating that I have on ankle weights with ice packs? Oh yeah, because you're freezing and you're hot at the same time. Is it annoying that the blanket cannot reach my toe because my feet are so high? So now I got cold feet for real, right? Not nervous, cold feet. But in the moment of all that, I was getting relief. So I think, it is a matter when you're thinking about appreciating little things is literally thinking about what's working in the midst of what's not working.
Because there's always something you can find.
Yeah.
Always.
There's always something working. So what do you think? Should we tap?
I was just going to say, girl, let's do a little song.
Right? I think we should tap. All right, so listen, as I told you yesterday, you can always tap along with us. Tapping doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to be as involved. We're only going to do basically this area here, which is side of hand. Want to let you know, of course, if you've never tapped before and you're not sure what it's all about, you can always get our free workbook. It specifically works with limiting beliefs, but it kind of walks you through what tapping is. And you can get that at bit.ly/G2A-LB1, all capitals, bit.ly/G2A, the number 2, by the way, -LB1. And you can at least see what we're doing. So I have no script. You want to go? You want to do it? You gonna do it?
You're leading?
You gonna lead?
No, you can lead today, girl.
I led yesterday. That's okay. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna lead. I'm just gonna do this really short. And what I want to think about is we'll go off of what Morgan was talking about, right? So having been through many unhomed at times, being through difficult housing situations. We have a mutual friend who right now is going under a very difficult housing situation. She's been unhomed about a year. She hasn't had to live in the street. Of course, she's lived with different family members, but she doesn't have an address. And it's been very, very difficult for her. So we're going to kind of work through that because I think toward the end of the year, things happen. Companies lay people off.
Yeah.
They downsize. They don't care that it's a holiday time or the best time of the year, whatever one wants to say. Fired, those things happen. And so there is a lot of financial situations too.
Stressors, yeah.
Yeah, this time of year. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So we're not going to go through a whole tapping transformation. Today we're just going to go through kind of like some breathing. So I'm going to do the tapping part. I'm going to let Morgan lead us through the breathing, the breath, because she's really excellent at that. And let her explain how you can do that. Remember, even if you're able to do like 30 seconds an hour, the last 30 seconds of the hour, set a timer. Set a timer and let it come up. You have your Apple Watch or your phone. Let it come up and remind you, let's breathe right now. There's apps you can get for that. We don't have one. I wish we did. We don't. But that remind you to do that breathing and remind you to just slow down for a second. All right?
Okay.
So you want to lead us through a little breathing?
Yes. Okay, everybody. So we are going to try to sit up straight so that you can get the oxygen flow going through you. And yeah, crack it. Oh, did you hear that? That
I did hear that.
Work that, baby.
I heard that.
So we're going to take a deep breath all the way in and as long as you can. And then we're going to blow it out as much as you can. And then we're going to do like this happy little straw method, where you're blowing, making a whistle and let it out. So we'll do about 3 rounds of that. Okay. All right. So we're going to breathe in and out. And in and out. And in and out. And And it's okay to take just a second and be still after you do that, because that will help you to be able to ground yourself. Also, if you can take off your shoes and put your feet flat on the floor, that's super, super helpful too while we're going through this.
Yeah. And I think later on in the week we can talk a little bit about what grounding looks like. We can talk a little bit about that, or even next week, in case you're not sure what that is. So we're just going to do a really short EFT, little tapping situation where we talk a little bit about, so think about your own, whatever you've got going on in your own life. Like if it's, whether it may not fit what we're talking about today, but think about your own situation and just substitute it for what we're saying. A lot of times we'll do repeat after me. We're not going to do that. We're just going to tap. So there's a lot of power in just taking, you could take 2 fingers. I like to do all 4, and you just tap. So this side between your kind of bone right here in your wrist, just kind of doing that and just tapping. First of all, I want to let you know that if you do this, just like you're in a meeting, like getting on your nerves, do this.
You can do it under the desk, under the
desk.
table.
You know, sometimes I'm in bed and I'm just like really stressed, but like, you know, my husband's already sleeping and I'll be in there tapping. I just go gently under the covers and I tap a little bit. So this is a point where you will be able to tap, and this is where we're going to start with what's going on that's wrong, right? So it's a way for you to allow things that are not great to coexist with you loving yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Because a lot of times, again, what we do is we say, oh, if there's a hardship, everything's terrible. And then we forget about what does work. We forget about, you know, accepting, loving ourselves. So even though I am struggling, even though I realize that at this time of year, I'm a little worried about my finances, even though I may have to move out of my apartment or my house and find other housing, I completely love and deeply respect myself. Even though over this past weekend, people asked me questions and I couldn't answer them. And I felt guilt because the answers were negative. They didn't put me in the best light. And it made me feel like I wasn't enough. And so even though I don't feel like I'm enough right now, I'm allowing myself to have peace. And even though I have experienced so many hard things, health challenges, financial challenges, I'm not always sure exactly where the next check's coming from. And yet I make it look like I do. So I feel a little fraudulent. And so even though I feel a little fraudulent, I'm going to allow myself to have peace. Even though people don't know me and they don't know everything that I'm dealing with, and I keep smiling, which makes me feel like an imposter, I deeply accept myself exactly who I am right now. And I love her. Let's stop for a second. Let's take a deep breath. So how did that feel? How did that feel for you? You know, one of the things that happens with tapping is that, and I know when it got
you saw that, didn't you? You felt that.
You know what happens is when I tell you unscripted, we didn't even know we were going to do it. You know, the thing is that because we're trained as practitioners, there's energy. I don't know. Shout out to every person who's watching this, and shout out to every replay viewer. But tap along with us, because there's most likely something for you. The energy moves us in such a way that we're like, ooh, let's talk about this. Let's tap on that. And what happens is you're able to release things. So the homework for tonight, we will be back, or today, we'll be back tomorrow, is to go ahead and make sure that you are taking that time, 30 seconds. Not a long time, 30 seconds, an hour. I think you can handle that. The other thing is to really, even if it's just one thing where you're like, this is working out for me. I'm going through this, I'm going through this, I'm going through this. I mean, maybe in your case, Morgan, I know that, you know, when the kids, you weren't always sure, you were leaving a state, you weren't really sure, but your kids that love them's kids. Like these are good kids, right? Some people don't have that. They're killing themselves for their family, and then the kids are like meat between the teeth that you want to take with a toothpick and then spit kapooey across the room. Right?
I have more phlegm.
I'm kidding, but you know what I mean? Like, you're like, I'm killing myself, and this is how you behave. And so,
but you know what? On that, she's right. Like, I've got the most amazing kids ever. So my youngest son came. He was going to go with your son to go get something to eat. And before he leaves, he comes in. He's like, I know better than not to kiss and hug you before I leave. I know better than not to say goodbye. And like kisses me on my forehead as I'm like have the blanket up over my head. That's beautiful.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So sometimes, then the next moment they may irritate you to no end, right? And you'll forget. So you gotta like anchor that in. You gotta anchor in those moments, because those keep you going when you're feeling low. And they may be fleeting, but when you start stacking them up, when you start writing them down and recalling them and stacking them up, is so powerful. So powerful. All right, so join us again tomorrow. So that's what we wanted you to do. Take your 30 seconds, an hour. Make sure you're doing some deep breathing. Go ahead and tap with us, tapping along. There's so much transformation that can come from that. And be thinking about what's that one thing that, like, through the hardship, like it's working anyway. And then I want to just put up our email address. You can always go to tapping@gettingafter.com if you're interested in how you can work with us. We would love to work with you. I don't have a link for the book, but you can find it on Amazon. I'll put it in the description box below. I'll be back tomorrow with number 3. It's going to be short. We're not going to tap tomorrow, I think. We won't tap them tomorrow. Well,
we don't know what we're going to do. What are you talking about? We probably will.
We may not. I don't know. Anyway, we're out. Peace. Bye, guys.
Bye.